to the Big Red Zone preview for Sunday, February 10th, alongside Cornell head coach Rob Cole. I'm Matt Schultz. As with every Big Red Zone preview, is brought to you by Advantage Sport and Fitness and B-Squared Construction, as well as Defense Zone. Defend what you have built. This Sunday, Cornell taking on the Bucknell Bison. You can hear coverage live on 1160ESPN.com, starting at 1:45 from the Freedman Wrestling Center. It's going to be senior day, so the final Freedman Wrestling Center match for Kyle Dake and Steve Bozak, and a few of the Cornell guys that have had really storied careers here under the Big Red Wrestling program. Let's take it weight by weight, coach. Starting at 125, Cornell against Bucknell. Bucknell's only ranked guy. It's a very inconvenient weight for Bucknell, 165. If you're going to match up with Cornell, you don't want your only ranked guy to be against Kyle Dake. But that said, 125, Nashawn Garrett ranked 6th in the country. The freshman now 31-3. Is he wrestling as well as anybody at 125 right now?
Nashawn is our freshman sensation. The only people who are surprised are those who haven't seen him early on, because we knew how good he was going to be. I was talking him up for quite some time, and he's everything we expected him to be, and he's getting better every time he steps on the mat. He's athletic, he's technical, and he's got a big gas tank, and that is a lethal combination of tools in his arsenal. So whoever he has this weekend, we expect big points.
And Bucknell, currently on their official roster for the Cornell duel, has that spot open, but we think if they do wrestle at 125, it'll be Austin Miller. He's currently 14-9 on the year, sophomore from Mount Joy, Pennsylvania. You would imagine Nashawn Garrett be going after some bonus points there at 125. 133, Coach Bricker Dixon and Nick Arruja have been sort of battling it out. Arruja's been down at weight now for a few weeks. Is he back yet?
No. Bricker Dixon will be our guy going forward. Nick's just struggled too much with his weight. I don't think it's healthy. He's not being able to handle it, so he's going up to 41. Of course, we have Mike Nevinger there, so we'll see Bricker Dixon for the rest of the year. And Bricker's an outstanding wrestler. He's a 4-time Missouri State champ. We just got to get him to understand how good he is and get his confidence back and get a little size, because he's really a very, very competitive 125-pounder wrestling with 133.
Is he a guy that, despite the size disadvantage, could still make NCAAs at 135?
Well, obviously, that's our goal. We're not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you he's going to win nationals. I'm not going to tell you he's probably going to place, because he just gets a little overpowered still. But if he wrestles a perfect match, he can go with anybody in the East. It's not a particularly strong weight class. He could not place, or he could win the thing. And it's up to him.
We'll see what Bricker does, especially this weekend. He'll have Paul Petrov of Bucknell, young freshman, 15-9 on the year out of Indiana. He's wrestled pretty well this year, but you'd expect, again, Bricker Dixon to show off the fact that he can wrestle with anybody in the East. 141, Mike Nevinger, coach, has looked terrible. He's dropped all the way down to number 12 in the rankings. I'm not going to mince words here. He's going to take on Derek Russell. Russell, a senior, is only 9-16 on the season, so you'd expect Nevinger to get back on track against Russell. But what specifically you need to see from Mike Nevinger for you to believe that he's back and ready to compete for a national title?
Well, as terrible as Mike has wrestled, as you so kindly pointed out, the kids he's losing to are all top 10 kids. It's not like he's losing to buds. I mean, these are good kids, and it's Division I college wrestling. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of wrestlers who are fighting for a spot. And when you get down to these, starting for a Division I program, everyone's good. And so for him to lose a few matches is unfortunate. He's not as good in a league as he is at a tournament, but once he gets in the tournament, we'll see the old Mike.
Hopefully we'll see a little of the old Mike this weekend. One of my favorites to watch when he gets on top. So we'll see if Mike Nevinger can get on top, do a little riding of Derek Russell. 149, Cornell's had some real good success with Chris Villalonga lately. He's up to number 13 in the rankings, and he seems to be continuing to wrestle more than I've ever seen him in the past. Continue to wrestle in matches, Coach. He's a guy that in the past he'd sort of stop at some point, but now he's got tech falls, pins. He's really racking up some really solid wins. Is he a guy that could be an All-American this year?
Well, we hope so. I think when we recruited him, Chris, he was one of the top kids in the United States of America. He's ranked 13th in the country. He's only a sophomore. He's injured 1 year. So, I mean, in any normal circumstances, almost any normal circumstances, he'd be pleased. But obviously we're not, because we've had such high expectations for Chris. He's started to really develop this year. He still has some setbacks. But once he gets his offense going, he's fantastic. He's great on top. Gotta get a little better on bottom. He still gets ridden a little too much. Not a little, any is too much. But I expect this to be a good match for him. He gets confidence on going into the national rules.
Yeah, taking on Adam Healy, a senior for the Bison. He's had a couple of good wins this year, but he sits at 9-16 on the year, so you'd think the longer would have a pretty good advantage there. 157 Cornell, Jesse Shannon has not been as consistent as I think you would want him to be. Really, he was a guy that I expected at some point to break through. I expected him to get one of those top 15, top 10 wins, and all of a sudden the nation knows who Jesse Shannon is. Just hasn't been able to break through with that one.
No, he's been close. He's been real close. The problem with Jesse is he does cut a lot of weight. He's like Mike Naviger, and once he gets in the tournaments, I expect him to be significantly improved. You know, he in every duel that we've had, the second duel we can look much better than the first. And this weekend is a 1 hour wait, so he's not going to have that advantage against Bucknell. He's wrestling a decent kid. But once again, we're not focusing on duels, we're focusing on the national championship at this point in time. So we just got to get Jesse confidence back. The only way to get confidence is to win matches. And the only way to win matches is to look good and wrestle well. And if you're not wrestling well because your weight's an issue, we have to address that. So that's one of the things we worked on this week, is really try to get down a little bit lower than normally we would, at least for a tournament. Hopefully we'll see the feet of our labor.
Yeah, Shannon's Bucknell opponent, not bad. Vincent Favia, 12-13 on the year as a freshman out of New Jersey. He has been wrestling really, really well. So we'll see if Shannon can kind of turn that corner, start to turn it up here as we move toward nationals. 165, I skipped over Kyle Day last week because most of the time there's no reason to talk about him. But this week, he's got a ranked opponent, number 10, Corey Lear. Very good wrestler for Bucknell, senior out of Orangeville, Pennsylvania. But coach, is there anybody outside the top 3 that can really challenge Kyle?
I don't think there's anybody in the top 3. And that's our goal, is to win the 4th national championship. I know Lear's a tough kid, but Kyle makes great wrestlers look very average. And we certainly expect his last match at the Wrestling Center to be no different than that.
Very emotional, I'm sure, for Kyle Day, for his family to wrestle for the final time in front of the Freedman Wrestling Center crowd. At 174 for Cornell, a guy that actually beat Lear last year. EIWA's wrestling at 165, now a 174-pounder Marshall Peppelman, but Duke Pickett still in the lineup. Do you know which way that's going to go on Sunday?
Duke just had his knee drained. He's had some trouble with his knee, so it's going to be Marshall. Marshall is our guy right now. Had a good win last weekend. He's starting to really get his confidence going, and I said Marshall's a guy who could really surprise people in the year.
Yeah, Marshall, big win over Jermaine John Posture last week. Looked really good. Marshall continues to look good. It's nice to see his progression because he came in with Chris Villalaga. The 2 of them were such highly touted recruits, and you wanted to see big things from them. Now we're starting to. I think this may be the upward turn that we were hoping for out of those 2 guys. Peppelman will take on either Stephen McPeak of Bucknell, a 12-8 junior, or Robert Schlitt, a 3-13 freshman. So big difference there between those 2 guys. And McPeak has already beaten Peppelman, beat him at Lockhaven 13-6. So who knows who's going to go? But Peppelman has improved to a point where I think if he wrestled McPeak again, you'd expect him to win.
We expect him to win, be a better win. This is for the Easterns, for seeding. It's an extremely important match, probably the most important match of this entire week for us.
Yeah, so keep an eye on 174. At 184, 4th-ranked Steve Bozak has started to get back to form, coach. He's starting to pin people. He looks great on top. Almost the old Steve Bozak, I think. We're getting there, and I know that that's been the goal all season long, is to get him right there for nationals. How close is he?
Well, if you saw him practice today, you wouldn't say that. He was not doing well. He was very upset. He holds himself to such a high standard. If he doesn't win in practice and have to do everything perfectly, he's furious, and that's why he's so successful. He's going to be fine for the Easterns, and he's got to win because it's obviously it makes his route to the national finals a lot easier. You have great guys in both brackets, but you kind of want to win that bottom bracket, so it will be helpful. His goal is to be a national finalist. His goal is to be a national champion, so you have to beat everyone once you get there. But he is looking good at the right time. His weight has finally gotten down. His strength is back because his wrist caused him not to lift the weight for 2 months. So the right side of his arm completely atrophied. So he's finally back where he's got his strength, he's got his conditioning, and I think from here on you can see a lot of things about Mr. Bozak. And
if Bozak can win the Easterns, it would mean going through Lehigh's Robert Hamlin, which would, as you said, help his road to the NCAA championship. He would jump Hamlin in seeding. He'd be on the 2-3 side of the bracket away from Penn State's Ed Ruth until the final. So that's kind of what the hope is there for Steve Bozak. This weekend, he'll be taking on Robert Marchese, a freshman for Bucknell, 5-19 on the year, so expect bonus points from Mr. Bozak. 197, Jace Bennett seems to have taken his role back. The sophomores 22-12 on the season, and a guy that coach really needs to get that consistency. I know he hasn't really shown it yet, but if he can get consistent, he's a guy that can make some noise in nationals.
He's at 10 falls. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the kid's a great pinner. He could score a lot of points for us at the Easterns. Billy George, another, has had actually a very, very good year. Both kids, if you look at the rankings, would probably fall in the 20 to 25 ranking. So it's a great problem to have when these two guys are battling out all the way to the end of the year. The problem with Jace is he's got magnets on his back, and when he doesn't win, he gets pinned, and it drives me absolutely crazy. So he's got to fix that, or else he'll sit on the bench. But I expect Jason to go out there and be real aggressive. He looked good in practice this week, but it was cold, and so it came with good goal.
Yeah, we'll see what Jace can do. He's got a tough opponent. Tyler Weister, 17-11 on the year, sophomore for the Bison. 285 heavyweights, striker Lane or Jacob Aiken-Phillips. Striker still recovering from injury. Is he back to form yet, or are we going to see Jap again?
You'll see Jap. He's striker still. He's drilling now, but he's not wrestling live. There's no reason this match. We should have this match at our hand by only 285. And Jacob had a great year, so give him one more opportunity to prove himself.
Yeah, so he'll take on Joe Stolfi, the heavyweight for Bucknell, 15-11. He's had a great year. He's had a couple of big wins, the sophomore from Harleysville, Pennsylvania. So a few matches to keep an eye on: 174, 197, 285. The rest of them should be pretty heavily in Cornell's favor. We'll see what happens come Sunday, but expect a pretty big win for the Cornell Big Red in their final home regular season duel of the season. Again, you can listen 1:45 p.m. online only, 1160ESPN.com. I'll be on the call with Chris Harrington bringing you all the action. This has been your Big Red Zone preview. Thank you to Advantage Sport and Fitness and D Squared Construction as well as Defense. So defend what you have built for bringing it to you. We'll see you again next week.